Patrick Flanagan. It's great to talk to you again.
Hey, it's great to talk to you again, Ken. How are you?
I'm good. Things are beautiful here in Sedona. And how are things in South America?
Things are great down here. It's really beautiful. I came down here originally, in 2003, and we bought a sugarcane plantation, and we've come back down again, and we're in the process of converting our plantation into a cacao plantation, cacao tree, and coffee.
Beautiful.
And we're really excited about it, and doing quite well. Thank you.
That's a good thing to be getting into cacao with the hard openings. We need so much hard opening in the world right now. That's fantastic. Right.
Everyone loves cacao.
But let's talk about the other reason you're down there in South America. You've been recovering your health down there too, haven't you?
I had a problem a while back with a blood clot release formed in my body last time I was in the hospital in the U.S. And when I got out of the hospital, the blood clot released and caused some problems. So I've been getting hyperbaric oxygenation treatments, which I really like. They're fantastic.
Well, you look great, and many people have been writing pretty much daily on your pages about your health, and it's just wonderful to see you looking so fit and on your way to a full recovery.
Thank you. Well, I feel wonderful, and it's really nice seeing you and talking to you.
Well, you're doing exciting things down there, and we know your mission in life is to benefit this planet, and it's great to be in touch with you. And you've got your book. I've got a few questions that I lined up here. And how's book sales going? How's it going?
Well, book sales are great. It's amazing that it was so far ahead of its time, and yet I'm get letters from people and communications from people that have just discovered it, and it's like a brand new discovery for many of them. And it's apparently a timeless book. It's appropriate for all ages.
Well, I'm not a good PDF reader, so when it came out in hardcover and on paperback, I finally had my chance to really get into it and really read it. And my mind was expanded. I'm not a scientist, as you know, I'm an artist, and you don't talk down to people like me when you write the book.
I've had a knack all my life because I had, as a child prodigy, I had to communicate with kids in school, and I had to communicate with scientists in laboratories wherever I've been in the world, working with different, government research scientists, and also with kids in school and so forth. So I have a pretty rounded background, so I'm able to communicate. Thank God with almost anyone.
The layman, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because very few of us are in your IQ range. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I'm seeing in the book here you're talking about the pyramids unlocking so many mysteries, and you call it the science of the cosmos on your byline here. What do you mean by that? By the science of the cosmos in relation to pyramids?
Well, it's interesting that all of the various tombs in Egypt have hieroglyphic writing all over the inside of the tombs, and a lot of the pyramidal type tombs down there, they have hieroglyphs all over the walls and everything. But the Great Pyramid of Egypt didn't have any hieroglyphic writing in it at all. In fact, it's free of hieroglyphics, and it makes you wonder when the pyramid was built and for what purpose, because it certainly was not a tomb for some Egyptian pharaoh. There have been a lot of different researchers who have given the Great Pyramid different ages, depending on who you read, and it's pretty well known that the pyramid was not built when most Egyptologists archaeologists think it was built. It was built much earlier than that, and so that's general consensus among scientists that I know, that I've communicated with in Egypt, various researchers that I've met over the years. I've spent a total of 3.5 years in Egypt, total time in Egypt, and I've been to Egypt 32 times. And so I spent a lot of time there, and spent a lot of time in the pyramid, and have actually spent the night in the pyramid dozens and dozens of times. And also, Stephanie and I even spent the night on top of the pyramid when we were there.
Wow.
And that was a very exciting time.
And the whole idea of precise mathematics you go into in your amazing book about the pyramid, and how it's so precise, and it was built so long ago, it couldn't be matched by today's technologies.
Oh, it's the most precision of all buildings ever constructed in the world. It covers an area of over 14 acres, and it's level within, I think it's 1/2 of an inch. And there's so many things about it that cannot be explained, that people actually weren't capable of doing back when it was supposed to have been built. And so it remains a mystery today, although many of your Egyptian archaeologists just try to keep saying parroting the same old story about the Great Pyramid. Really, a pharaoh's tomb. The pharaoh that built the pyramid would have been so proud of his accomplishments that it would have hieroglyphs all over the inside. It would have it would be bragging about the incredible accomplishments of the pharaoh, and there simply isn't anything like that. So that's true of most of the other buildings and monuments in Egypt. Everywhere you go, they're really testaments to the pharaoh who built them, and they tell the life story, and all the great deeds and so forth. But the Great Pyramid of Giza simply doesn't have any of that. So I'm convinced that it was built long before any of those other monuments were built.
Any estimate on time, you think?
Well, I think that it was built 75,000 years ago.
Wow.
And one of the reasons is that some of the watermarks that are in Egypt can't be explained by anything known within the last, say, 8,000, 9,000 years. No one can explain some of the watermarks on some of the monuments and things like that. So so I think it will forever remain a mystery.
I noticed in the book you go into the energy systems in different cultures that you talk about, and then you show a diagram of a Kundalini figure, and there was a pyramid that's actually drawn around the figure. So are we in a way pyramids ourselves? Is that what that book or that ancient drawing is sort of relating to?
Sure. I think so. The human body has been likened to a pyramid. We have various chambers in our body, or organ and energy systems, and I think it's a good example of what might go on inside the human body. And when I wrote Pyramid Power, no one had even heard. Hardly anyone had even been to Egypt or been in the pyramid, and it was written so long ago, before I ever went to Egypt, and I was so lucky to be able to go to Egypt after Pyramid Power became essentially a bestseller, and that actually made me enough money to go to Egypt.
Very good. And the whole idea of the pyramids has fascinated us ever since your book sort of began. So much of a I don't want to call it a craze, but it's been certainly been so much enthusiasm. Yeah, pyramids. There were actually people walking around with pyramids on their heads for a while after you were on Tom Schneider and some of the other shows back then.
Well, yeah. Well, the funny thing is that when I went to divorce this company that was a little company in Santa Monica, I went to them and I took my manuscript and I said, you know, I want you to consider printing my publishing my book, and divorce and company. They said, well, we don't think anyone would be interested in it, and they said, but for only $5,000. This was way back. They said that you can print 5,000 copies at $1 a piece, and so I borrowed money and I published the first $5,000. The first 5,000 books, and first $5,000 worth $1 a piece, and it took off and became a bestseller. The people that own the company said that they sure wish they had published it.
Do you know if the man who made the decision lost his job over it? Because it sounds like that.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I
you never know with these things.
Who made that decision?
Yeah. You talk about star drives in the book in the future, and talk about being ahead of yourself. You're already talking about us reaching the interstellar travel.
Because as a young man, starting out at about 11 years old, I attracted the attention of a lot of U.S. government agencies, and because of that, I worked as a consultant nearly, my teenage years, and into my early 20s. I was a consultant at various government think tanks, and so and one of the interesting things is that I owned a company called Listening Incorporated, and Listening Incorporated was owned by three people, me and two other people, and every year Whiteley Bateau, who was one of the other owners of Listening Incorporated, would he knew all the top science fiction writers in the world. So once a year, all the top, you can't name one of the most popular, well-known science fiction writers in existence that didn't. Every single one of them came once a year to visit us, and we would discuss the kind of research we were doing at Listening Incorporated, and then they would take all that information back and they would write all of their science fiction stories for the next year based on the actual research that we were doing.
Right.
And so I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the best minds in science fiction, and a lot of the top science fiction authors were really well trained in science and knew science extremely well. And so back then the science fiction was really the cutting edge of science, and so we publish an analog science fact and fiction magazine once a year. And in fact, I wrote a company report for analog for our company called Listening. I wrote the annual report for it, and the publisher said that it sounded so much like science fiction that he wanted to publish it as our annual report in the magazine, and analog science fact and fiction, and they did that. And so it was a very exciting time in my life to be connected with all those people, and so it's helped me a lot in every aspect of my life.
Yeah, the book established you as a financially independent, so you could develop your Phi Sciences organization and all that, didn't it?
That's right. No, I was always barely getting by in my life, and because I own Pyramid Power, and because it became an international bestseller, and I ended up making all the profit. Of course, I sold a lot of my Pyramid Power books wholesale, but since I was a publisher, I made the publishers, the publishers amount of money on it, and so I ended up being able to finance all of my own research from then on, and so it was a real blessing.
And so that helped you led you on to the discovery of mega hydrate and crystal energy as well. Then,
It did. As a matter of fact, um, being an inventor, I had a couple of hundred inventions way back when, and my good friend who actually was the Dwight Wayne Bateau said to me, he said, Patrick, uh, you're never going to be successful if you just keep trying to figure out a way to put all 300 inventions on the market.
mm-hmm.
You're going to have to pick just one or two or a few, but you're going to have to forget the rest of them. You're going to have to focus on just a few inventions, and that way you'll be a success. And it was the best advice I ever received in my entire life. And so that was a godsend.
Well, when you're as prolific as you are, you can just sort of get lost in your own creations without getting them out into the world. Yeah, and I've seen other writers in Hollywood like that, where they're doing that. And I guess this is a good time for me to mention too. I'm very excited to be working on the screenplay of your life story. I mean, this is such an honor, and it's the first time I've had a chance to thank you face to face because your beautiful wife Stephanie worked out all the details for that.
I feel honored that you are taking the time with your skill and with your abilities to write my life story. It touches me very deeply that you're involved with this project.
Oh, thank you. It's such a challenge because you've done so much to condense it into a 100-minute to 120-minute story. But the other beautiful thing about your work is it's so clear and concise that if I just stay to that same sort of style of your inventing with my writing, and the way you wrote Pyramid Power it's a very smooth read. I mean, it's not what did you call it? The text that you used for that book?
I used it's called ventilated prose.
Yeah, and a screenplay is very much like a ventilated prose. I'm sure you've seen screenplays, and it's very much of a haiku. You can't get into a lot of detail, and it's just getting to the facts and getting to the visual images. Whereas here, you're just getting straight to the science, and it's just breathtaking. So, but I'm just every day I get up and I'm excited to work on the screenplay, and I'm just about halfway through your amazing childhood, and it's nothing like anyone's ever seen before. People are going to be amazed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, my mother was so surprised; she didn't know what to do with me.
That's the magic of the whole thing, isn't it? Yeah. Just what do you do with it? Your life is going along, and all of a sudden you have this little genius that's in your house, right? And it's like everything changes.
Yeah, she was amazing, amazing mother. But one thing I really appreciated my parents when I was growing up is that they allowed me to expand and do my own thing, and I was very grateful. I went to work as a television repairman when I was 11 years old, and every summer I'd work all day long, every day in the summer, and then during a school year I'd work after school as a TV repairman, and then that helped me so much. And what I learned as a TV repairman, and TVs back in those days were something else, and they were so big and heavy, so I developed a lot of muscles just picking up and carrying big old TVs around. And
did that lead to your gymnastics?
Yes, ultimately it did. I had to develop those muscles, and eventually it did lead to gymnastics, and I was slated for the Olympics, but I various aspects of life arranged themselves so that I wasn't able to actually go to the Olympics, and I had to go to work and earn a living. So
Yeah. Well, your life has been very balanced in a way, like a pyramid, with body, mind, and spirit. And there's so many people that get, say, maybe so wrapped up in science they don't do something physical like gymnastics, and they don't apply themselves spiritually, and they become one dimensional. You're a very three dimensional scientist for that reason, I think.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, also when I was a child, I had polio when I was about what 8 years old, and because of the polio, I had to fight to actually keep the use of my body in the walk. I had to work my way through an enormous amount of pain after I got polio, and that kind of gave me a determination that carried forth throughout my entire life.
And it's happening right now, isn't it? I mean, you are literally recovering from that 2015 injury when you fell down the stairs and wound up in a coma, and then you had a setback in 2016. But you have this amazing capacity. You were born premature. You struggled from the moment you were born.
That's right. I was 2 months premature, and I didn't even have a swallow reflex when I was born. And so back then, premature babies were they were harder to deal with than they are today.
I'll give you a little sneak peek from the screenplay, because I'm always I have to imagine things to compress it into screen time. But I have a scene where your mother is feeding you where you're a baby, and she's telling Michael, "Come, you got to see, he's swallowing," and he's like, "Big deal." But
that's true.
And when you think about the amount of physical ailments, I mean, you were in Egypt, and didn't you have a horse accident in Egypt at one point too?
Yes. Let's see, about I guess it was maybe my third or fourth trip to Egypt. I went riding out. We took horses out past. There was a cliff, a real narrow cliff, with a big steep drop, and barely enough room for a single horse to go along this cliff. And we went by there, and I had never. I'm from Texas, but I didn't learn how to ride horses when I was little, and but this horse turned around and started speeding for the cliff, and I didn't know what to do, so I just pulled back on the reins, and the horse reared up, and he landed on my body while I was astride, and it broke my back. It actually broke some vertebrae at the base of my spine. And my foot was through the stirrup, and the horse got up to run, and I just got my foot out just as it fell.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
That was one of my hazardous trips to Egypt.
You are a real life Indiana Jones. There's no question about it. You're out there exploring the pyramids, and the amount of time that you spent, I don't think has been matched by too many people that are in the work right now. And everyone from Ancient Aliens, that show on the History Channel, to the Greg Bradens and Nassim's of the world, owe you a huge debt.
Well, thank you. We all, every single one of us stands on the shoulders of giants, and all the people came before me, and the people that I had the opportunity to know and to learn from as I was growing up have been. We need to acknowledge those who came before us, and I've tried to do that in my life.
Well, I'm going to wrap up with you here, and I'm going to read something from your book. You say there should be no place in real scientific effort for dogma, for where there's dogma, there is little freedom for inquiry, and when free inquiry is stifled, there is much error in the secrecy that stifles it. I just thought that was a profound quote, and you've been so open with us. Thank you so much for your honesty and your openness, and we're so grateful that you're recovering.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you so much. And I've enjoyed this, and look forward to many more communications. Thank you.